my dear peeps from around the world, and welcome to another week of an Everything Goes journey. So, my apologies for missing a week last week, but the reason why I had to have a gap week is because I had sort of like back-to-back family visits. You remember my husband's family from the Isle of Man were visiting all the way from there to here, and they were here for about 10 days. And then 3 days after we said goodbye, my sister from Puerto Rico came to visit, and she stayed with us for about 5 nights. And she brought my niece as a surprise, which I didn't know she was coming with. So that was quite awesome. So what did I do with her? What you do when you live in Florida, nearby all the parks, and you have company visiting? Well, you end up in the parks again. So to be fair, we only decided to do that out of a whim because it is my niece's birthday coming soon. So we bought tickets for Islands of Adventure because she loves roller coasters, and to be fair, I had a blast too. So we went during the day and then came back home, and then went back during the night to see how everything looks at night, and then came back home, and we were totally exhausted for that day. But before that, we tried to check out things around the community. For example, Winter Garden every Saturday has a farmer's market, which is really amazing. It's quite big. They have everything from produce to flavored popcorn, and they have jewelry, they have plants, they have corn, they have all kinds of food and things like that. So it was really cool. And then we went to this inside marketplace where the Crooked Can Brewery has their location. And gosh, if you really stay in the area and you want to try some craft beers, they are tasty. So here is a little video about how that section of the inside marketplace looks like. And then, aside from doing the parks and checking out things locally, we sort of like went to the theater to see movies, and because that is fantastic for me, being a movie maniac, the fact that I can actually see movies the day they come out. So we went to see Disclosure Day the day it got released, which I am a huge Steven Spielberg fan, and I'm not going to give a review of the movie. That's not what I'm here, as you know. But one of the things that going around to so many different places and seeing so many things and paying for stuff, you sort of start realizing, like, everywhere you go, people ask you for your phone number, and a lot of discount programs here in the US are linked to the phone number. So if you're a tourist and you're walking around the Orlando area and you're buying something at Walgreens, for example, they will say, "Oh, what's your phone number? Or do you have your phone number saved with us?" And it's because of that, a lot of these reward programs are linked to your phone number. So it can take people by surprise a little bit, because I come in the UK, you don't share that information with everyone publicly. Your phone number is your phone number. And it made me highlight a little bit about the different ways that how data is treated and things that we have to get used to. In the UK, there is something called GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation. And that is basically takes care of Europe. UK is involved in it as well, and of course all the UK territories, Isle of Man, etc. And we all, everything complies with the GDPR regulations. Okay, and it's built on basically 7 core principles. And one of them, for example, is law. Not going to go through 7 of them, but one is lawfulness, fairness, and transparency, that a person should know how their data is being collected and be fully aware of the reason why. The purpose of the data collection is basically only that, unless you're aware of other legitimate reasons. Accuracy, the data has to be accurate. Storage limitation, people can only store that data for the amount of time that is needed for the particular purpose. Integrity and confidentiality, the data must be protected. Meeting the standards of GDPR. Accountability, organizations must be able to demonstrate that they are able to comply with the GDPR principles, and also state why they are not able to comply if there are any departures from it. So in the UK and UK territories, Europe, that area, you feel really safe regarding identity theft, because you know how your data is used, you know how the data is protected, and you know that companies collecting your data will meet the parameters to safeguard that information. Here in the US, data is a business. In the UK, it is not. Okay, so why we don't have the same parameters of protection here in the US? I did a quick Google and to see what the AI will tell me, and saying USA why it doesn't have GDPR, and it explains simply that the US lacks a single comprehensive federal law and relies on a state-by-state patchwork of privacy laws and sector-specific federal regulations. So, and also lobbying and commerce. Powerful industry groups like tech and pharmaceutical companies have historically lobbied against broad federal privacy legislation favoring more flexible environment for commercial data use. And of course, there is a lack of a dedicated agency. Unlike the US, the EU, which has established data protection authorities to enforce GDPR, the US has no single federal data protection agency. So what does that mean to us as individuals? If you're someone moving from abroad to the US and you're coming from a country in which you know how your data is handled, how your data is protected, and you know that telemarketing has been basically outlawed in a way. You know, you can put yourself on do not call list and nobody can contact you, is literally against the law. And the same way, your information cannot be sold. So a company acquires your information, let's say a bank acquires your information for the purpose of maintaining your profile as a customer to protect themselves from anti-money laundering, and also to be able to service your account. That bank cannot grab that information and share it with anyone else unless they disclose the reason why and how it will be shared. So that bank, for example, may have smaller families, and you may have a loan with one of the family brands, and of course your information will be shared, but you will be prompted to authorize, can we share that information with our family sister brand to be able to provide the loan services you're asking for. But here in the US, your data is up for sale, is part of a big business, and it can drive you a little bit insane thinking that your phone number is being entered everywhere, is falling in the hands of telemarketing firms, and then you are getting bombarded with phone calls and SMS texts. Here, SMS is used a lot to sell you services and to actually, call you. And also, a lot of these are smishing and phishing and trying to get your information. So you have to be really, really careful. You have to ask questions. And if you are filling up your data or putting your data on any website for any particular purpose, or you want somebody to follow up with you, etc., and you need to read the fine print to be able to know what's going to happen with the information you have entered later on. Otherwise, live with the assumption that your data is out there. So what can you do to prevent this? To prevent that feeling of feeling exposed and protect yourself a little bit better. There are companies out there that actually sell identity theft insurance programs. A lot of times it is tied up with a renter's insurance if you're renting a property. And you can also check on the Experian and the major credit company credit rating websites, because they provide tips and advice of how to prevent your identity being stolen. Also, all the different like TransUnion, Experian, and it's the three major companies. I can't remember a third one, only human. Is the fact that you are allowed to request a copy of your credit report at least once a year. So you can go over the credit report and identify if anyone had opened a line of credit under your name that you are not aware of, and immediately being able to take action. That reminds me, many years ago, when I used to live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I asked for my Experian report and found exactly that. I found one line of credit that didn't belong to me. Fortunately, it was recently open, so they were able to amend my credit right away, raise an alarm, and I didn't have to go through a lot of getting a new driver's license or shutting my bank accounts or things like that, because they were able to basically remove the line of credit, track who initiated it, and pursue the following actions. But I know that about 3 months after I checked again, that was not there anymore. So it was entirely removed from my credit. So moral of the story is like, yes, you will feel very exposed when you relocate, because your data is managed completely different and is for sale. However, you as an individual can inform yourself and take action to make sure that you protect your data and prevent identity theft, not only for yourself, but anybody in your family that lives in your household. Especially minor information, I try to make sure that I don't put my son's name, age, birth, date of birth, anything like that anywhere that doesn't relate specifically to the school or to the football club soccer club that he is involved with. Anything else aside from that, or government services, of course, that they need the information to process his health insurance. But aside from that, his data doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so things that we have learned, and I'm gonna leave you there this week with that nugget of knowledge. And I have a funny story to share with you. Now, this story doesn't exist on film, and my sister was the only witness to it. She was the only live witness, because my son and my husband only saw the after effect. So before I was taking my sister and my niece to the airport, the Orlando airport, which is about 35 minutes away from the house, we had the time to leave planned. And my sister goes like, "You want to take the dog for a quick wee before we leave?" And I say, "Yeah, let's do that." And normally I go through the front of the house to prevent going on the back of the house where the lake is, because there's usually a lot of dogs, cranes, squirrels, all kinds of different birds, ibises, and things like that in the lake during the day. But I said, it's just about 5 minutes, let's do it. And I just started talking with my sister, and I got distracted and I started walking away. And Winston, my dear dog, starts barking and starts pulling. And I'm thinking to myself, oh gosh, I feel like this was a mistake. We should turn around, go in the front. and Winston kept pulling even more. And before I knew, I never let go. Winston runs inside the lake to chase the ducks, and I never let go. So he takes me with him into the lake, and next thing I know, I pull him out of the lake. I'm covered in water head to toe with pieces of algae hanging from my hair. He has algae on him, his lid is covered in green stuff, and my sister is just standing by the shoreline going like, what just happened? And she couldn't do anything because she has a wonky knee and she didn't want to risk getting harm or anything. So yeah, so we start walking to the house, and I'll tell her to please just go in and tell my husband to bring a towel. And I explain what happened. And he starts laughing. First words out of his mouth is like, did anybody catch it on film? I was like, that's really funny. And look at me, and that's all you worry about. I called my mom to tell her the story, and she goes like, oh my gosh, did anybody get it on film? I'm like, really? And then I tell my other sister, and first words out of her mouth are, yes, you know. Gosh, we lost $10,000 in America's Funniest Videos. Somebody should have filmed that. Like, seriously? So we went back on our garden camera, and it turns out that because it's on a time lapse, it only records like each 20 minutes, so we made something really, really funny happening. If you have a lake in the house with dogs, and you may want to do the quick wee walks in the front of the house away from the dogs, because dogs can be unpredictable around wildlife. Yeah. So that's it for this week, guys. Nice to see you all again. Hope you're glad I'm back. And then if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, opinions, anything you want to share, please leave me a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And see you next week. Take care. Bye.